Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Cancer. That's the Chariot card there. Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of June 2023. I hope you're well. I'm using the Crow Tarot for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That is the first link in the description box. The second link in the description box is to join my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on Circle. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost, plus hang out with a really extraordinary group of people. There's such a wealth of knowledge that's being shared in there. I can't even, it's awesome. What else? Oh, we're also setting up classes and stuff over there as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, please do feel free to avail yourself of that link. Now, Cancer, let's have a look and see what's going on with you. Could I have 3 cards for Cancer, please? Well, there's the first one. Let's flip this around so I can do my customary bitching about the placement of the camera. There we are. We have the 3 of Swords in your recent past. Let's have a look at current energy for Cancer. Thank you. Goodness, we have the Tower. Right. Please don't panic, because I'm honestly not getting terrible vibes off this. And I just, let's get all the cards out before we make any decisions about what this means. What's coming towards Cancer for June, please? Thank you. We have the Queen of Pentacles with the Page of Cups at the bottom of the deck. Yeah, I mean, there's... There are plenty of instances where I could see the 3 of Swords and the Tower and I'd be a little bit like, oh dear, seems like a bit of a spicy month for you. And in some ways it probably is a spicy month, but there's something a little detached about the experience of this, which makes it feel like it's a little more like contemplation than anything else. But let's get some clarifiers on the table. Yeah, it is you, yeah. Excuse me. Bit of a tickle in my throat this morning. So, why is the 3 of Swords here for Cancer, please? We have the Page of Pentacles and the 9 of Cups. Tell me about the Tower, please. Why is this here? See, intuition rules everything. Tell me about the Queen of Pentacles, please. Thank you. We have the Lovers and we have the 9 of... Yeah, like... I don't know if you can see this, Cancer, but no, you can't. I've got the most extraordinary goosebumps. We have the 10 of Cups at the bottom of the deck. This feeling that I had of a kind of detachment in the contemplation... Oh, fuck me, that's even worse. In the contemplation of these cards at the top is something more to... akin to well, this is the situation, this is what's happened, possibly in the past. And the question is now what we're going to do about it. It feels to me actually to be extraordinarily empowering. And yeah, I mean, the goosebumps are definitely an indication that there's something really quite special happening for you at the moment. So let's start with this 3 of Swords right here. I think it's the one card in the tarot that people really don't need explaining to them, right? The image is so visceral, so I guess archetypal in some sort of way, but then it's not, because it is a physical feeling, and it's an image that no matter which deck you pick up is relatable, because all of us know what it feels like to have that sword cut through the heart. It feels like a physical pain within the body. But, I'm always banging on about this. When I first started learning the tarot, although I very readily understood the meaning of the card, what I didn't understand was why it was the sword suit that represented this particular feeling, when it seemed to me that it was a distinctly emotional concern. And the swords deal with rationality, truth, information, the way that the mind works, logic, those kind of things, right? It's all about what's going on up here. And that's not where the pain is when the 3 of Swords hits. And after a while, I came to the conclusion, having thought about this for a bit, that sometimes the things that hurt us, there's a temporal distortion between when those things occur and when we actually find out about it. And it's the point at which the swords meet the heart. The mind becomes aware of information that is felt in the heart, and in the light of that, everything changes. You know, we realise that we've been betrayed or humiliated. You know, we've been let down in some sort of way. I mean, it certainly extends beyond disappointment, and this is heartbreak right here. And then it made much more sense. But sometimes those things can, like I said, they could have happened years and years ago. It's at the point where you find out about them that everything changes, that the landscape changes. But I feel like this card indicating the recent past, as it does, which, just FYI, could be this morning when you got up, or it could have been 6 weeks ago. To have it in your recent past, and oh my God, it's my fucking pelvis. And us having just gone through May, which astrologically has been an incredibly significant month for everyone, where we saw, back in April, we saw the solar eclipse in Aries. I think that was around about the 20th of April, which was then swiftly followed by a lunar eclipse on the 5th of May in Scorpio. So I was really dredging some shit up there. And I don't know about you, but I'm still absolutely reeling from the revelations of that. And they're still coming. And then we had Mercury retrograde, which was a big one. And then, on top of all of that, we had this fixed grand cross that's been in a state of exactitude, I believe, for about a fortnight or somewhere thereabouts. Anyway, I might be wrong on that, but certainly for a while. And the energy was building up to it, and when it's finished its work, the energy will take a little bit of time to wind down again. And all of these things are having us think very, very deeply, reflect very, very deeply on an awful lot of things. It could have been past behaviour. It could have been past behaviour by other people. I mean, I certainly feel that there's been some illumination on bits of us that we have not truly had a chance to contemplate before, because there were simply just too many obstacles in the way. And the obstacles can be our own pain, and that might well have been one of them. They can be the protective mechanisms that we have put in place in order to avoid that pain. There could be just the blindness that we've had to a given person's behaviour, our responses to that behaviour, or maybe it's even the way that we have aligned ourselves with a particular kind of life experience, to which, understanding that if we are resonating at anything other than our best self, that there's always the capacity for us to project, or us to attract the wrong kind of person, as it were. I think they often turn out to be the right kind of person to teach us really valuable lessons. But when we see these two cards underneath here, we've got the Page of Pentacles and we've got the Nine of Cups. Now, separately, these two speak to very different things. I mean, the Page of Pentacles is sometimes called the student card, right? There's this idea that one comes across something and dedicates, we dedicate ourselves to it, right? To the, look at the look he's got on his face there. It's like, whoa, this is the most amazing thing that I've ever seen. And I don't view the Pentacles as purely representing the material. It's often talked about in terms of money and things like that. But for me, because the Pentacles are energetic currency, what we have here is a situation whereby the Pentacles become anything that you can invest. So yes, your money absolutely features in that, but also your time and your care and your effort and your love and your energy generally, your attention. All of these things are Pentacles. And so the Page of Pentacles for me speaks specifically about discovering the value of something, the value of anything that you have within your capacity to invest. And we've talked a lot over the last couple of years about how there have been experiences that have been somewhat characterized by you investing in the wrong thing. investing in people who were not worthy of your time, investing in situations that, might have had red flags all over them. And yet we've been oblivious to it. My Venus is in Cancer, so, I resonate hard with that. But the Page of Pentacles suggests to us that there's this slow burgeoning realization that investment in self truly is the only way forwards. And, as an extension of that, recognizing the value within ourselves is the only way forwards, really. If we want things to change outside of us, if we want to become more resilient to life's experiences, if we want to just grow generally, we have to start with us internally. And then we come to the Nine of Cups. Now, for me, the nines in the tarot represent the individual experience. The 10 represents the collective experience, although that's kind of, not something that can be manoeuvred around a little bit. It's not quite as straightforward as that. So the Nine of Cups, then, is about your emotions. It's sometimes called the wish card, so it's about your dreams, your hopes, your highest aspirations, the goals that you have, that you are emotionally invested in. But more specifically, the nines speak to me about the way that we manage the suit that it represents. So, for example, the Nine of Swords is about the way that we manage our mind, or whether we allow our mind to manage us, right? There's a lot in there about perspective and overthinking and all those sorts of things, right? And so the wisdom of the Nine of Swords is, it's time for you to take a step back and make sure that you're actually looking at something properly, because maybe in this situation your mind is running you and you're desperately trying to keep up with it, and everything is spiraling and it feels very dark. There's more to it than that, but that's the way that I see it. The Nine of Wands is about our vitality, our life force. It's about our life experiences, and it is then how we manage those in terms of resiliency and boundary setting and stuff like that. And so with the Nine of Cups, what we've got here is how we manage our own emotions, because that truly is more important than whether we have literally everything that we wished for on a plate. It's somewhat of a trope now, but I think the cult of celebrity that we've really since the 1940s, that has been affecting the world, with the advent of the technology that allows art and music and film and these sorts of things to be widely disseminated, widely understood, widely known. Everybody kind of hankers after that existence. There are very, very few people who achieve that level of success who seem in any sort of way comfortable with themselves. They're always like doing a Britney or something and shaving their heads and having meltdowns and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's a particular subset of them, but do you understand the point? And the wisdom of this card says to me that even if you had everything that you ever dreamed of, handed to you on a plate, unless your emotions are stable, unless they're in the right place, unless you are managing them, and managing your ego and managing all sorts of stuff, it becomes like a poisoned chalice. Yeah, you got those things, but there has been a cost, and the cost actually is your sense of well-being. Now, I'm generalizing widely, but I think that we recognize the stereotype in there somewhere, and it's a stereotype for a reason. When you put these two cards together, what we're seeing is the value of your happiness, the value that you put on your happiness. Now that with all of the information that you have accrued over a lifetime, you're in a place to really truly contemplate, study, commit yourself to the understanding of your happiness. I was doing a personal reading a couple of weeks ago with a client of mine who actually is a Cancer, and I've quoted him a number of times in the June readings that I've been doing, because what he emailed to me in advance of his reading was so astute. it was so simple, but it was so astute. And he said what he'd realised was that he had conflated fun and happiness. And that one wasn't necessarily the same as the other. It's possible to have a lot of fun, but when the fun stops, still be unhappy. And so then the question of what happiness actually means became something that came to the fore. You know, is there a formula for success when it comes to happiness? Can you boil it down to 12 rules, for example? You know, a la Jordan Peterson. You know, can you, or 3 rules for life, which is something that you would see very much on, I don't know, Reddit subboards, you know, the self-improvement stuff. People going, yeah, I've worked out the exact formula for happiness. And I think whilst there are some consistent preconditions for it, I would say, for example, that you have to understand the value of existence, of your existence, the fact that you have worth simply by existing, and quite aside from any value that you bring to anybody else. It made me realise that each person's experience of happiness is somewhat unique. Like, it has to be tailored to you because it has to come from you. And whilst there might be, like I say, some consistency in the things that crop up again and again and again, if you don't see the value of you, if your value of you is in some way coming from the people that are around you rather than coming from within, then what you're doing is creating a dependency on other people. We don't like that because Venus in Cancer, we have somewhat of a predisposition towards codependency. And I think that altogether, these cards are talking about perhaps contemplation and reflection on, which might have taken up quite a bit of May for you, on what happiness actually looks like to you. What are the expressions of that? What are the feelings that go with it? Maybe a realization that actually you haven't been happy ever. What you've had is moments of intoxication, like emotional intoxication. You've had lots of fun, and then the fun stopped and it just became hard. It became difficult. It became maybe it's even toxic, right? And the realization that as everything needs to generate from within, that maybe you've been looking in the wrong place for all of these things. Now, I know that this is the case because we've been talking about this for the last couple of years, actually, Cancer. But we have this Page of Cups here with this Ten of Cups, beg your pardon, at the bottom of the deck. These are the shadow cards. They act somewhat as an underlying theme to the reading. And what we've got here with the page, another page, is a new beginning, a new emotional approach. The pages differ from the aces for me because the aces are something so new, right? They represent pure potential and they contain everything. You can run the full gauntlet of good emotion and bad emotion in the aces. But we're hoping that it starts from a place of self-worth, all that sort of stuff. When you come to the pages take something that you already have, something that is already within your experience, and you guide it off in a different direction. So when the Page of Cups appears, what we've got here is a recognition that emotions exist, but that they need to be guided, they need to be, perhaps they need to be studied, they certainly need to be committed to. They need to be unpicked in some sort of way. And that, it makes it sound kind of analytical, but it's not. It's almost like taking your emotions off autopilot and sitting and studying them for the first time. Like, why are you here? Why do you do this? Because within that, there's a recognition that your emotions are not you. Emotions are transitory. Emotions are fleeting. They don't define you. But they do act as signposts, I guess, to a deeper sense of self-knowledge. And for you, Cancer, there's always going to be some reference to your collective, your community, the people that surround you that you are, so very devoted to. Because the sign of Cancer, a bit like the sign of Virgo, is devoted to being of service. But there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And understanding your past trauma means that you understand that you have been conditioned to do it the wrong way. And now it falls to you to find new ways of doing it. I've been talking about this being something that's come up in the month of May, but actually it's likely that this is something that you've been sitting with for quite a long time. But the things that have come up for you during the month of May have given you additional insight. They're giving you additional information. And in some ways, maybe they're giving you new strategies on how to look at these things. And what I said at the beginning was I didn't feel like either of these cards were bad at all. Is because it feels like they're showing up so that you can do something about it. There's something kind of historic about that Three of Swords there. Rather than being an actual event, it speaks to there being a frame of mind or a frame of emotion that you have worked through or, seen the world through for the longest time. That the images are coming through here, but there's been the filtration of the Five of Swords. 7, 5, 3. There we go. That was the one I was looking for. And that does skew everything. Awareness of the skewing and the consideration of the axis between self and others and taking a new approach to it, understanding the value of it in a different way, is an extraordinarily powerful change in mindset, I think. It doesn't guarantee that you are going to be happy, but it puts you in a position where you are far more likely to achieve a true sense of happiness than if you're labouring under the conditioning that you've received in youth, right? So we come to the Tower. I must say, the Tower just felt good to me when it came out. Now, to be fair to the Tower is always good. The Tower is the universe kind of bringing this great big broad broom through your life and going, that's bullshit, you don't need that, and you don't need that, and you don't need that. At the time when it happens, almost always, I would say probably 90% of the time, it feels incredibly destabilizing, a little bit frightening, and but sometimes it can feel like your very life is ending. It's like shit, We can see the tarot representing, a sudden job loss or the loss of a home, the loss of a partner, just a sudden separation. But we can see it playing out in all sorts of other ways. For me, I have to say, my most profound Tower moments, the ones that have really chucked me involuntarily into some really deep work, were the ones that I had when I was doing something mindless, like the washing up. As my subconscious just briefly bubbled to the surface and went, yo, Carrie, look at these two things together. And I must as they say in Geordie land here, I must have looked a right clip, standing there with, my hands in the water, my mouth wide open, seemingly completely zoned out, while my brain is now pinging with the two things that I've just put together that I didn't see before. In the light of the Tower, everything changes. And it can change materially, but profoundly it changes up here. Sometimes it changes here as well. In that other 10% of the time, the Tower is obviously good, right? It's sudden good news that you weren't expecting. You've won something, or, something truly miraculous has happened. And that's that kind of sense of it coming from nowhere. But in all senses, what the universe is doing here is shaking you free. The fixed Grand Cross that we've just had in the sky, while it's been mostly, obviously focused on fixed signs, and you're not a fixed sign, you're a cardinal water. It is designed to shake free the things that are fixed about us, right? Allow some sort of transformation coming in. And the Tower always does that. The Tower takes the things that you think are static, pulls them away and goes, right, how are you going to grow now? This is a redirection. And so it is right here. Because what I felt when I saw the Tower, and what I still feel now, is that in some way you are guiding this Tower. Like, you are the Tower. And instead of the universe bringing a broad brush through your life and sweeping out all of the detritus that you don't need in there anymore, this is something that you are beginning. No, I don't think you're beginning to contemplate. I think you're actually doing it, because we've got the Six of Wands and the King of Wands here. And this is Leo energy. We've got Jupiter in Leo, and then we've got, the active masculine expression of Leo energy right here, as opposed to the feminine aspect of it. And we have both within us, so please don't get hung up on whether this is male or not, because Tarot doesn't give a shit about that. What you've got here is activity. Like, these cards are all about doing. The wands are about doing and experience and living and all that kind of thing. And what I'm feeling very strongly here is a dedication to success. But for the first time, it feels to me like with these preceding cards here, you have an idea of what success actually looks like to you as a Cancer. Because just as our idea of happiness is actually broadly unique to us. I know for me, I love peace and quiet, right? The more silent it is, the happier I am. Like, I hate the noise of the road. I actually like the noise of the birds and stuff like that, right? But we don't count the birds and the animal noises. I like to be in the middle of fucking nowhere. I really love the idea of being able to walk out of a house and I can't see fucking anything anywhere. It might be my Capricorn ascendant, right? When I live on the top of a mountain by myself, living my best life, where I kind of wander around, read books, potter in my vegetable garden, chase animals about, that kind of thing. Obviously my kids don't count in that because they're kind of part of my bubble, and my partner. Anyway. But I know to other people that would be like absolute death. Like, they couldn't think of anything worse. These people are considerably more sociable than I am, and they like company. I like company sometimes, but not all the time. Not even most of the time. I'm not even gonna lie. And for some people, the idea of having nothing to do but read books sounds like Dante's The Seventh Circle of Hell. The way that our happiness is materially experienced varies greatly, but so does then our idea of experience. 10 years ago, where would I have been 10 years ago? All right, at the age of 32. My idea of success was just getting through the day. Two very, very small twins. I'd have been, about 8 months old. I wasn't sleeping through the night because they weren't sleeping through the night. I was breastfeeding them about every 2 fucking hours. That was for the first 9 months. They were feeding every 2 hours, which was insane. If I managed to get a load of washing done, that was success to me. Now, you come forward 5 years, twins are a bit older, a little bit more manageable, well, just intense in a different way, to be honest. And I can get the washing done, and I can do, X, Y, and Z. But then, my idea of success is focused on, I need to get my master's degree, and then I need to do the BPTC, and then I need to get pupillage, and then I need to have a career. Because to me, at that point, success was having a good job, and being barrister is recognised as a good job, with a good income, intellectual rigour, and all these kind of things, right? And I was absolutely focused on that. Now, in the intervening period, I had a tower where the universe went, for fuck's sake, Carrie, would you stop trying to do that and go this way instead? And I didn't want to, because I had absolutely set myself on what I was going to. I was going to go to the bar, I was going to practice law, and I was going to be wildly successful. Now, unpicking the reasons why that was my idea of success, as I did in the year or two after the brain injury that I received that stopped me from being able to go down that path, I realised that so much of my self-worth was wrapped up in an idea of success that didn't actually even belong to me. When I was young, it was very clear to me that the only thing, it seemed to me at least, the only thing that my mother really valued about me was my intelligence, because that looked good on her. And consequently, from there, the only thing that I valued about myself was my intelligence. So naturally, I was going to go and do a job that had a corresponding amount of status and wealth attached to the idea that one's intelligence was valuable. Nothing else about me held any worth. And at the point where my idea of success was truly ripped away from my existence, and I did not have the capacity to follow that anymore, I was left in a state, post-tower, where I needed to rebuild. I needed to look for the things that were valuable about me, and I needed to change my idea of what success lies. And now, in 2023, I have a very, very different idea of what success looks like. It's still kind of chaotic, but it's very, very different, right? And I feel like you are not prepared to follow an old version of what success means to you, right? That's not the carrot that it used to be. And everything's being reassessed in the light of what actually makes you happy. More than that, in your current energy, you seem to be gunning for this new version of success. Looking for ways to expand this so that this fills your life more. I mean, maybe you've been working some sort of, rat race job that has paid okay, but has taken up an awful lot of your time, right? And it hasn't left any time for you. It hasn't left the amount of time that you would like for you to spend with people that you truly care about. So maybe you're retraining. Maybe you're going to do something else. Maybe you've always fancied, running a donkey sanctuary or something like that, right? I'm exaggerating for effect, but you understand, right? You've gone for a corporate finance job to, I'm going to rescue donkeys. I would not be surprised to see that level of transformation going on with the cards that I'm seeing right here. But it could be much more subtle than that. It could be the understanding that in order for you to function at your best, you need to spend a certain amount of time alone. Because maybe spending a bit of time alone has freaked you out in the past, but now you're starting to see the value of it, because there's the time that you get to process everything, apply your own particular wisdom to situations that you've been in, and make sure that you're actually understanding the situations as they are. But I mean, to be honest, with this Six of Wands here, it does rather suggest that the opposite is true, that you're spending a little bit more time around people, because there's a conspicuous public aspect to this card. You see all the people in the background here. Whatever it is, though, we've got expansion of what is good. And to that end, the tower then is not happening at you. You're kind of going through your life and having maybe a bit of a spring clean and going, do you know what? There's loads of stuff in here that's actually bollocks that I don't actually need to do. Now I've reassessed what my idea of success is, I can actually let those go. And this is creating all sorts of space for me to be able to move in, around in, and feel a lot more like the Six of Wands. Now, I want to pull one more card. I'm going to get the Triple Goddess here, because I feel like there's just a little bit more under here that I haven't quite got to yet. I want a little cue for it. Tell me about the Six and King of Wands. The Temperance card. Wow. Ooh. And the Wheel of Fortune. How amazing. One more, please. Good Lord. Cancer, look at that. We have the Temperance card, we have the Wheel of Fortune, and we have the Magician with the Page of Cups again at the bottom of the deck. And this is so important for you. I'm sure I don't know whether we talked about last time or the month before, perhaps, just how very important your emotions are to any given situation, right? And certainly in terms of what makes you feel good. Emotions first. You are a water sign, right? But it has to be emotions that you are present with, right? And they have to come from a place of healing. They have to come from a place of balance and moderation, right? So not over-investing in people at the expense of yourself, right? It's keeping that temperate, what's the word that I'm looking for? Well, just that place of equilibrium in the middle, right? You've worked too fucking hard not to occupy the middle space. Now you know where it is. And so it's a bit of people and it's a bit of you. And somewhere in the middle is the right way forward for you. And we've got the Wheel of Fortune. You know, the Wheel of Fortune and the Tower together with the Magician. It makes me feel like you are feeling spectacularly empowered to make the changes that you need to align with a better version of yourself, you know, a more content version of yourself. One where emotions are allowed to come out and get an airing. You know, one of the things that's really beautiful about this, Cancer, I'm sorry it's a bit of a trope, but it's kind of a bit of a trope because it's true. Like, there is a tendency to lean towards passive aggression in Cancer. And just as there is for, you know, a lot of signs. But it's understanding where that passive aggression comes from. It's this kind of sideways run-up that you take at things of emotional nature, right? And often that's because there's a fear of rejection kind of baked in there. So you scuttle up sideways like a crab and you're like, so like emotional stuff, and somebody goes, and then you've got the option of kind of running away if you need to, or hunkering down, armoring down, you know, all those kind of things. When passive aggression is your default approach to something that you feel isn't working out the way that you would like it to, communication with people isn't working out the way that you want it to, right? Where there's some sort of need, there's some sort of expectation that is not being met. If you don't feel comfortable to be able to directly address that, and it comes out in passive aggression instead, what it's really saying is exactly that. Like, you don't feel strong enough to be able to approach this situation head on. And for a lot of you, I feel like that's a little less about you and a little bit more about the people that you are dealing with. You know, we've talked about people pleasing and all that sort of stuff, right? But also how sensitive you are as a sign, and correspondingly, you know, particularly when you've experienced trauma in your childhood, how hypersensitive that makes you to the needs of others. You have to be tuned into it, because if you're not, you're going to make some sort of false step that it's going to bring down a whole heap of shit on your head, whether it's a state of rejection or whether it was really interesting. Actually, I was literally talking to my partner about this. Both of us had kind of similar experiences that need to be aware. Because if you put a foot wrong, before you know it, like, you're getting a fucking beating, or your parents going to ignore you for the next fucking week because you said something wrong. And you're just like, what the fuck, right? And we take that into adulthood. That kind of feeling around and like, well, what does this person need from us? What do they want from us? What is the right answer? TM. And then doing everything in our power to make sure that we do that so we can maintain the status quo. You're absolutely not about maintaining the status quo at the moment because we've got the Tower. But also, any notion of passive aggression is spectacularly absent from the equation here. This is about action. And it doesn't have to be aggressive. And sometimes I feel like when passive-aggressive behaviour has been the default, has been the norm, where what you're trying to say with your passive aggression is, fucking hell, like, it represents a monumental step up for you to be able to face things. You know, both of these characters here, very straight-backed, like head up, looking forwards. You know, when we've got the Wands card, when fire is involved anywhere, there is the ability to be able to confront. There's the ability to be able to stand up for oneself. We've got it all here. And you're actively doing it. Because we have the Temperance card, also, you know, a fire energy card. It represents Sagittarius. And it's about the transmutation. The transmutation of things that have been painful into things that are beautiful, things that feed you. Something that you have been destined to work out for yourself in the best possible way. But when you read these two cards in tandem, I mean, there are big changes coming in here for you. And the Magician. And the Magician says you actually have everything that you fucking need. You might not have enough money. You might not have enough, I don't know, adventure and excitement in your life. But the preceding energy to you getting what you want is you being able to focus on the fact that you want it and you're going to manifest it for yourself. And not allowing any kind of sabotaging influences to come through and say, well, maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe that person deserves my attention more than I do. No, it's the presence of the aces. All things are possible. I'm allowed to have these things. What it seems to me that you're doing, Cancer, in the present moment, is picking up that bar that you set that showed the world how you wanted to be treated by the way that you've treated yourself, and you've lifted it right up. Here's where I'm at now, world. This is how I need to be treated. So, the people who dismissed you for being hypersensitive or whatever, in some way gave you the indication that your opinion wasn't actually nearly as important because you were too sensitive. You overreacted about things. Why are you always so paranoid? Instead of sitting and helping you find a way to feel safe, find a way to express yourself directly and openly. And how you took that into yourself then, right? And that's how you treat yourself, and that correspondingly has been how the world has treated you thereafter. This bar's getting picked right up. Like, fuck me, look at the power in these cards here. I often talk about the Wheel of Fortune like a save point in a game. Okay? Well, we struggle through those first few levels and we do them again and again and again, right? The cycles repeat again and again and again. We're trying to work out what it is the game fucking wants from us. And we've got to, work out how to... A friend of mine from years ago, I played the Tomb Raider game. Like, literally playing the whole game through. Very end, had to do, like, this insane group of movements to get Lara to go from one thing. We're going back about fucking 25 years here. And he spent weeks on it. Weeks and weeks and weeks doing everything, and he finally worked it out. And it was such a big thing. He dedicated so much of his life to it. It was like having a baby or something, the level of celebration. Anyway, I digress. Save point in a game. We do all of that struggle, and then something clicks, something works, and we're like, holy shit. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to be hard moving forwards, but it means that in this moment you have expanded yourself to such a degree that what was hard now will not feel as hard in the future. You have grown. And however difficult things get in the future, you're never going to go back to the beginning. You're going to come back to this save point of, I remember what success means to me, and I know how to get it. I know I can bring the tower, and that's okay. I understand my worth, I understand my happiness, or at least I'm beginning to understand the value of my happiness and why that is important. And so in some ways, there are no losses here. Because the ability to change your life, to get that wheel moving, has always been within you, but it's always felt a little bit out of reach, and it's here right now. There's a conscious acknowledgement of it, and you're like, these are the things that I'm going to do to bring it about. And final cards that we've got for June are the Queen of Pentacles, the Lovers, and the Nine of Pentacles, and this could not be more on fucking point and lead on so nicely from what we've been talking about before. Queen of Pentacles is Capricorn energy. And I always thought it was rather hysterical until I kind of worked out the reasoning behind it, that it also represents self-care, investment in self. You know, if this is newly discovering the value of self, then this is getting to a point where you are actively nurturing, actively investing in who you are. Because from that point on, right, once you're investing in yourself, you know what you've got left over. And you also know, you know, because the queens all have a high level of discernment, whether you investing in anything is worth your time. And at no point are you investing in someone or something or a situation or a relationship at the expense of yourself, because you come first. And June seems to have that right at the forefront of your mind. Now, self-care, again, just like the expression of happiness and the feeling of happiness, is slightly different for everyone. You know, self-care for Taurus is good food, a bubble bath, you know, wine, that kind of thing. But for, I don't know, I'll say for like a fire sign, that would be a bit like, can we not go and like do something instead? You know, can we go experience a thing instead of get out there, you know? It's different for everyone. I mean, you're going to know better than anybody else what makes you feel good, and this does feel like it's at the forefront of your mind. So maybe it's a bubble bath, but maybe it's going for a run, maybe it's going for a swim, you know, maybe it's sitting down with a good fucking book. Maybe it's putting yourself in a position where you are not accessible by, you know, people who would make demands on your time. Maybe you're turning your phone off for a little bit. You're going for a nap. Just sitting reading a book. Either way, I feel like both the act of self-care and the contemplation of what self-care looks like to you and how you can bring more of it into your life becomes something that's very, very important in the month of June. Not because of the thing in itself, but because of the space that you have created to allow yourself to experience that. I mean, the Queen of Pentacles is really quite interesting. We have lotus flowers at the bottom, here and here. You don't usually see those on a Queen of Pentacles. They speak about spiritual expansion. You know, the lotus flower literally opens up to represent expanding consciousness. And we have the rabbit down here, which is, you know, often about fertility and abundance and all that kind of thing, right? It's kind of like the symbol of spring and everything starting to bloom and really, you know, breed, I guess. But on this card, it's the one thing that was really drawing my eyes, this wand at the back. I have absolutely no idea why it's there. There's literally no reason for it to be there. This is not a wands card, and yet it exists. If you look closely, you can see the wand, and atop the wand is a butterfly. Now, there, again, butterflies we tend to see on the swords suit, the king and the queen, mostly the king. There's butterflies around the king, and it's symbolic of this lightness of mental touch, right? The way that it can, you can kind of mentally, like a butterfly, be able to touch lightly on all sorts of things, to come to a decision about stuff, to be able to understand things, bring clarity. But I mean, the more obvious interpretation is that of transformation, of allowing yourself to develop from caterpillar to butterfly and then be actively living it. And following on from the tower and everything that we've seen here, it feels to me like you are restructuring your life in quite a profound way. Oh, the way that you're doing is going to be different for each of you, but the restructuring is feels like it's very much on point. I don't think I finished my thought earlier. I was saying, May is perhaps the most astrologically significant month. Has been the most astrologically significant month that we will see in 2023. But a lot of it was characterised by stasis, right? We had that Mercury retrograde in the middle of it. We were all in a state of contemplation. We were all thinking about things and reflecting on things. And it's interesting to me just how life-changing June appears to be for most of the signs. It's like if May and all of the astrological events in there was the tension, and there was a lot of tension there. There was a lot being pulled in lots of different directions. But, you know, envisage it like a catapult. If the pulling back on that was the tension. Then June is about the release, for sure. And it's about this way that we've got of slingshotting ourselves into a state of alignment with our North Node, because the nodes have been part of the fixed cross. It's getting us away from default patterns of behaviour and much closer to something very new, very inspired, very evolved that comes from the self. It's not contingent on external circumstances. Right? It's understanding that everything starts from within first. And if you truly are wanting to change your life, and I do see a lot to indicate here that you are changing your life, then the most profound place for that to start is within you. That's where the significant changes are going to be made. And I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that there is an understanding that you are basically a fucking magician and you can do everything that you want to do as soon as you start removing all of the obstacles to such. And you have. You see it. You've hit the save point on the game. From here on out, from this position of healing and balance and moderation that you're taking to everything, it's putting you in a position where you can actually restructure your life with you in the center of it. Now, for some people, right, say for example, if I was to say that to Aries, they'd be like, duh, obviously, that's what you do. But for a sign that is so focused on other people, so focused on bringing people together, so focused on being of service to a collective of people, right? You are the guy, you're the person that people come to when they've got problems. You are the person that people come to when they need a sympathetic ear. Right? Somebody who is not going to judge them, somebody who's going to understand, somebody who's going to be compassionate. You have always been the embodiment of that. But because it wasn't coming from a healthy place in you, it has taken from you, whether you've realised it or not. In the moment, it might have felt good, but you've been carrying a lot of shit around with you for a very long time. And now that this is dissipating, it's actually allowing you to show up more strongly. Because you're bringing everything that you are to the table now. You know, we've talked at length about fear of rejection and all that sort of stuff, which is very much part of the Cancer experience. But as that fear of rejection is beginning to abate, so correspondingly there's an embracing of self. And that is putting you in such a powerful place. Because the Lover's card is a card of manifestation. It's a card of conscious co-creation. It's a card of getting in alignment with all sorts of stuff. It's the card of union and harmony, but it speaks to me about the act of stepping up and making decisions for yourself. And actually, the content of those things that you're choosing between isn't really important at all. It's about the act of stepping up and making those decisions, rather than allowing life to happen at you, rather than allowing people to come and take your time. Right? It would be about the erection of boundaries. I would say, like, I'm willing to help you, but, you know, I've got some stuff that I have to do first. I'll come to you as soon as I've got time, for example, right? Perhaps it would be, you know, not dropping everything. It's kind of the same thing, actually, to be honest. I'm sure you understand what I mean, though. Because this is about the exercise of free will. It's funny how much that has come up as well this month for people. You know, the contemplation of whether it is that they are actually exercising their free will at any point. I mean, if you ask me, like, over 20 years in the middle of my life there, whether I had ever been stopped from exercising my free will, I would have snorted and said, no, absolutely not, ridiculous. But on reflection, I can see how I've always been driven by not only a sense of duty, but this hypersensitivity. What does everybody need from me right now, right? And trying to work it out in advance. I mean, I didn't feature in that equation at all. Myself, my free will was actually nowhere to be seen. Because although I felt like I was exercising it in a very, very narrow set of parameters. And that was the whole list of things that I had to do, people that I had to please, people that I had to keep happy, things that I had to keep running. There was no space for self in that, none. And we had the Nine of Pentacles. Now, if you remember what I said about the nines, how they represent the... put that so you can see them there a little bit. How it represents the management of the suit. Well, if the Nine of Pentacles is energetic currency, well, if the Pentacles generally are energetic currency, then the Nine of Pentacles becomes how you manage that. How you manage your time, how you manage your care, how you manage your effort, your energy, your love, your attention. And how, just like the Queen of Pentacles suggests here, you focus it in on yourself. Now, this doesn't actually suggest to me at all that there's anything even remotely hermit-like about the way that you experience your energy this month. I'm far from it. Like I said, I already feel like there's that kind of, there's a more gregarious air to you. You know, and we're coming up to, we'll be coming up to your birthday for some of you very soon. Birthday season always includes a little bit more socialising. I think generally it doesn't for me actually, but you know what I mean. But this sense of you being in charge, you making the decisions, you exercising your free will. May might have been the significant month astrologically. May have been the month where we had all sorts of insights and revelations about ourselves and other people and the way that we show up in relationship dynamics and all that sort of stuff. But June is looking like the month where everybody is starting to make big changes off the back of what they have learned. You know, for sure you seem to be taking control of yourself, but correspondingly you're also taking control where appropriate in the situations where yourself shows up. Four of Wands. Seven of Pentacles and the King of Cups. Page of Swords at the bottom of the deck. There it is. Let's screen that out. So what we have is the creation of a new foundation. You are doing things differently, Cancer. Now this can represent the home. It can represent, physical building, if you wanted to. But to me, it's the feeling of home. It's kind of like the abstract feeling of home. It's the feeling of home rather than home itself. It's the people that feel like home. It's the way that we do things. You seem to me to be shifting things around this month, and you're like, you know what, this has never actually worked for me very well, so I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to be paying more attention to where my energy goes, because I have recognised that it doesn't always go in the right place. In fact, quite often it doesn't go in the right place. You're taking a very mature, very evolved approach to the way that you experience the kind of the foundation that needs to be built in order for you to start really feeling this and feeling this. Some of you might be changing jobs. That's the thing, right? You might be changing jobs. Some of you might be taking up hobbies, sports, something that puts you in amongst other people. There's a sense here of like the things that you've learned and the things that you've worked out over May being put to practical application in June. And I think a true willingness to tackle the things that aren't right. That keeps coming up for work. Some of you is really, really important here. It might be work-life balance. It might be what you literally do as a job. It might be the beginnings of sussing out whether you could do something different. Shifting career altogether. Like, what would I need to do to do something else? Maybe set up my own business, or those kind of things. You know, what is really, really obvious is just how fruitful you are starting to perceive your life to be in terms of the potential that it holds when you eliminate the things that are holding you back. Now, I have to say that this reading is a little, I don't want to say vague exactly. It's a little less specific than I've seen the other ones, but with your birthday coming up, I don't know about you, but I always find like that month before your birthday, the season before your birthday, tends to be one that is filled with reflection. It's filled with, this sense of kind of assimilating all the lessons of the year together. Readiness for your solar return is coming in, and what you're going to do about it. There's definitely a sense of that. I mean, for me, during Cancer season, I actually get a bit withdrawn and I get very reflective and I do think about things an awful lot. And then before I know it's Leo season, and I'm like, oh, hello, here we are. At my worst, I get a little bit maudlin and a little bit of, develop a bit of a martyr complex and stuff like that. It's like, about everything. But it seems to happen the same way every year, and it's kind of like, getting a chance to kind of iron it all out before the solar return happens. And I wonder if it's the same for you, Cancer. I think you're starting to gun towards this idea of what a future could look like for you, and it's not defined in the same ways that it used to be. And so rather than taking what you've been told are the indicators of success, what you've been shown are the indicators of success, it feels to me like you've been reaching within a lot more and going, nah, that doesn't really work for me. What would work for me is this or that. Now, how do I restructure my life so that those things are attainable, those things are possible? And that's what you're doing. Now, we've got another page there, Page of Swords. Like, for me, that is about mental expansion, but it's also about research. It's also like putting some time in to learn things, to expand your knowledge on something. Like, you're making huge changes. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're making huge changes. And they are to reflect the new version of you that exists within. And I think that's great. So I'm gonna go over to Vimeo now. If this reading has resonated with you and you want to go a little bit deeper, we're going to be looking at June specifically, rather than all of this. We'll be focusing much more on this, see what you need to know. So if you fancy seeing that, that's the first link in the description box. You can come and join me over there, or you can come and join me over at Circle. You can watch everything then over there. But if neither of those appeal, that's absolutely fine. Just know that there's true strength emerging here from you, Cancer. And I think in some ways just a little bit of you is kind of surprised. Because the way that you're going about everything is so alien compared to the way that you would have done it before. But then there's also this kind of corresponding ease that's coming in with it. It's like the lesson's really bedding in. I love this for you. This is cool. Right, I'm going to go. Know that I love you all very, very much. And I'll see you soon.